كلية الفقه الحنفي تقدم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد. Welcome to lesson 9, and now we're going to move on. So we spent the first 8 or so sessions going through some topics such as إذا صح الحديث فهو مذهبي. What does that mean? لا إنكار في مسائل اختلاف. What does that mean? Then we also kind of delved into fiqh al-muqaran, contemporary comparative fiqh, some of the pitfalls of that, some of the pros of that. Then we also then done this kind of very brief introduction into the other madhahib, in terms of who the imams are, the basic structure of it, some of the things to look out for. And so with that brief understanding in mind, and also certain books were mentioned for further reading, I did not mention, I should have. You have, for example, like in the Hanbali Madhab, Madkh al-Mufassal by Bakr Abu Zayd. And nowadays, by the way, in terms of introductory books, the market is full of introductory books. Every few months or every year, you always see like a madkhal to ilm al-hadith, madkhal to usul al-fiqh, madkhal to this madhab, madkhal to that madhab. So you just have to do like a basic Google search, and you'll find numerous works that will do a good job at just providing introductory material. But of course, if you really want to learn anything about another madhab properly, the way to do it is to sit and under the feet of certain mashayikh and go through the fiqh of that madhab. But for our purpose, we should just be aware that this is how the basic structure works. These are some of the names to be aware of, some of the books to be aware of. And so if we have to then do like something, cross-checking something, and rather than having to rely upon our text telling us what the Hanbali say, we can easily just go off and look at some of these books and just confirm and make life much more easier. And we can't always have a Shafi or Hanbali or Maliki at hand. We can just easily go and know what books to kind of refer back to see if these positions actually represent them. But we're going to now move on to the Dala'il of the Hanafi madhab and the main books that deal with that. So in the previous semester, we did go through some works about the history of the madhab, Imam Hanifa, Sahibain. We looked at some of the early books, then certain fiqhi masail, taqleed, the four madhab formation, and then we looked at some contemporary masail, like if you remember giving fatwa other madhab, some things to do with Rasul Mufti, and so on and so forth. What we're going to look at now for some sessions, depending on see how long it takes, is regarding the evidence of the Hanbali madhab, the evidence for the Hanafi madhab, the main books, manahij, and what we can take away from that. Okay, so the first book that we're looking at, and I have the book here, right? You can see it's called Al-Hujjah. I don't know if it comes out right. It's called Al-Hujjah ala Ahl Medina, or Kitab Al-Hujjah ala Ahl Medina, and this is by Imam Muhammad ibn Hasan al-Shaybani. One of the benefits that we have within the Hanafi madhab is that a lot of the positions that the Imam Abu Hanifa or Sahibain held, we don't only know what the positions are, we know how they came to those conclusions. So the adilla, the evidences that they used, we have them largely preserved. Not everything, not every furu', but we have at least a gist of understanding what their positions were. So this book of Imam Muhammad, Kitab al-Hujjah ala Ahl Medina, is not that large a work. So I just want to show you this, right? So you can see from the size, it's 2 volumes. So it looks very big, but the reason for the significant size of the book is because the footnotes are extensive, right? The hashia of this is written by Sayyid Mehdi Hassan Shah Jahanpuri. He's an Indian scholar. So just to give you like an idea, so if this is this is the Kitab al-Hujjah, and you can see here this is all the hashia, and that's quite consistent. You go to a random page, right, and you see again the text on the top, hashia. So if you just to take out the original text, it will still be a significant, a decent size volume, but nothing as when you see the size you think this is Imam Muhammad. It's not all Imam Muhammad. The vast majority of the content is actually from the hashia, in which he kind of commentates upon the mas'ala, he cites the positions. But let me try to break this down, inshallah, what exactly this book is. Now, this is the sole publication of it, in terms of with the hashia of Mullah Mehdi Hassan Shah Jahanpuri. So if you see usually prints of this, it's a reprint of this early edition. This is Alim al-Kutub, but this is a reprint of the original print, which means that you don't have any extensive introductory dirasa. a study of the book, which kind of helps us to navigate what exactly the book's about, or at least the manhaj of Imam Muhammad. A lot of these things are lacking in this work. There's a very short introduction that we're going to look at, and it will kind of hopefully give us some clarity. So right in the beginning of the work, the muhaqqiq, he says the following. He goes, وبعد فإن الإمام محمد حسن شيباني صاحب الإمام حنيفة لما رحل للسماع الموطأ الإمام مالك إمام الدار الهجرة مكث في المدينة المنورة 3 سنين وسمع الحديث من غيره أيضا وناظر علماء المدينة واحتج عليه بحجة بحيسان وجمع حججه في كتاب سماه كتاب الحجة ولما انصرف إلى العراق رواه عنه تلاميذه واشتهر برواية عيسى بن أبان واهتم به علماء الكوفة يتداولونه فيما بينهم وانتفع به أهل العلم شرقا وغربا قرنا بعد قرن ثم أصبح غريبا في العالم الإسلامي واحتاج علماء إليه يفتشون عنه ولا يجدون له نسخة إلا نسخة في المكتبة المحمودية في مدينة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وهي أيضا مع سقمها ليست بكاملة وأظنها نصفه فنسخه أهل العلم من الهند وغيرهم وهي نسخة فريدة فيها أغلاط وتحريفات وبياضات وتقديم وتأخير. Okay, so this would hopefully give a summary of this text. Quite a nice brief summary. Imam Muhammad, he traveled to Medina. When he goes off to Medina, he spends there 3 years and he hears hadith from Imam Malik ibn Anas. Right? He hears the Muwatta, as we mentioned before, from Imam Malik. And thereafter he goes and he stays there, and not just Imam Malik, by the way, other ulama of Medina. Now, of course, the main alim of Medina is Imam Malik. Right? There's not any great dispute in that. The main imam in Medina is Imam Malik ibn Anas. After spending 3 years in Medina debating with the ulama, mainly Imam Malik, those follow, and other scholars, Imam Muhammad decides to write down his debates and his arguments against the ulama in Medina. So the ulama, the Ahlul Medina, doesn't just mean Malik, but of course predominantly Malik. So a lot of this work, which is written in response to the Ahlul Medina, a lot of it is in reference to Imam Malik, but not necessarily Imam Malik. So this becomes a major work of Imam Muhammad Hassan Shaybani, and it was transmitted by numerous students he mentioned, but the transmission that we have is by his student Isa ibn Aban. Isa ibn Aban, that if you recall right back to our first semester, we mentioned this person as being one of the first to codify Hanafi Usul al-Hadith. Right? His book was used by Imam Jassas when he wrote his book Al-Fusul fil Usul. These are points that you may recall from the first semester that we noted. Now, Imam Muhammad writes this work, Isa ibn Aban transmits it, so it gains initial popularity. Rather, in the Kitab al-Umm of Imam al-Shafi'i, he actually engages with the book, the content of this book. So you can actually see some of the citations are actually from the Kitab al-Hujjah by Imam Shafi'i, from Imam Shafi'i in Kitab al-Umm. So it was a book that was well known, but because of the structure of the madhahib, which is that once it got codified, the adilla part became less relevant, and what was more important was the masail itself, because the madhab itself became a purpose to, it became a maqsad itself to study. So it's like, what did Imam Muhammad say? What's the tafri'? How do we understand it? Rather than trying to justify his position against the mukhalif. So that's why you don't actually see the book of, he says, of the Kitab al-Hujjah al-Ahli Medina and similar other works. They don't gain that amount of fame and popularity within Hanafi circles. So it came kind of, people didn't get interested in it, such that when now scholars came to try to find this work, they couldn't find it except for what he assumes to be around half the book that's preserved in one single manuscript. And even in that one single manuscript, there are mistakes and errors. So to reconstruct the text is a effort itself. So he says, so in it is bayadat, meaning parts that are blank, taqdeem wa ta'khir, one part's supposed to be before, it comes after, so on and so forth. ولما أسست لجنة إحياء المعارف النعمانية وأراد أن تنشرها فتشنا عن نسخي وكتبنا إلى أقطار عالم فلم يخبرنا به أحد من أهل العلم إلا بنسختين منه في الأستانة وطلبنا تصوير نسخة مكتبة النور العثمانية فوجدناه نسخة من نسخة المدينة المنورة فلما أيسنا في نسخه عزمنا أن نصحح الكتاب بقدر الوسع فنسخناه بنسخة بأيدينا ثم قابلناه على الأصل ثم قابلناه على نسخة علام محقق شيخ الإسلام مولانا عارف أنوار الله الهيدرابادي الذي مكتبة الجامع النظامية وهو رحمه الله كان نسخها لنفسه حين دخل المدينة مع بعض الكتب التي نسخها حين سكن فيها. So he talks about how they were looking for different manuscripts, how they came across some were not so great, some were better, and they compared these and tried to reconstruct the text to the best of the ability. And so he goes, وجعلناها أصل الذي يتبع منه الكتاب ورتبناه والتمسنا لتصحيح رجالا فما وجدنا له إلا علام محقق مولانا السيد مهدي حسن كيلاني مفتي بلد السورة فالتمسنا من فضيلة أن يصحي ويعلق عليه فأسعدنا بقبوله. So he goes, once we done this, we were looking for someone to edit this work, right? We're looking for someone to edit this work and help us in it. This is the Lajna, the place which is known Lajna Ma'arif al-Nu'maniyya in Hyderabad. With I think is written by Abu Wafa al-Afghani, this introduction. And he goes, we're looking for someone to kind of do the effort, do the work, and we came across Maulana Sayyid Mahdi Hassan Kilani, also Shah Jahan Puri. And so we asked him, can you do this work? And so he accepted. So therefore he took it, he made corrections to it, and he added great. He goes, ويعلق رويدة شكر الله مساعيه الجميلة لأنه كان مشغولا بالفتوى وغيرها من تأليفات حتى مكن التصحيح والتعليق عليه 20 سنة حتى فرغ منه في دار العلوم بديوبند من الهند مع ابتلائه بالأمراض ومع إشغاله الكثيرة. So he spent 2 decades in parts, right? In parts, 2 decades on it, and eventually he finished it in Darul Deoband despite many illnesses. This same Mullah Mahdi Hassan Shah Jahanpuri has other works as well. One of his works that is republished recently was his response to Ibn Hazm's Al-Muhalla, all right, Sayf al-Mujalla, which is a response to the Muhalla of Ibn Hazm. Not that great book, I would say. You get the old prints available online, the new editions there. The new edition doesn't really help in terms of footnotes, just a reconstruction of the original text by Mahdi Hassan Shah Jahanpuri or Kailani. But this work with this hash is much more useful. There's a lot of effort being made on the narrators of the book to try to work out who they are, and a lot of comparison with the hadith work, etc., to reconstruct the narrations to the best of his ability. So there is some shortcoming in terms of the preservation of the text. Not to do with Imam Muhammad, so there's not corrections of Imam Muhammad, meaning the transmission of it, or the manuscripts of it have errors, in scribal errors. So therefore to kind of reconstruct the text was a bit difficult. And because this work of Imam Muhammad is a musnad text, it means that he brings in asanid. So therefore there's a lot of names, and when it comes to names and scribes are not aware of names or the actual dhabt of them, then a significant amount of errors do creep in. So that's something that he has tried to amend and note. So keeping that in mind, right, we're going to look at some sections so we can kind of see the manhaj of Imam Muhammad in how he presents his arguments, inshallah. Okay, so for a case study, just to kind of see what's the manhaj of Imam Muhammad, what does he say, how does he argue? I'm not going to look at the hawashi, okay, because then it's going to take, because I want to just to show listeners, and I hope that you can just download it. So I'm not going to use like a random section, go right at the beginning, so it'll be easier for you to find, so you can easily just go and download the work and go to the very beginning of the work, and you can see what I'm reading, inshallah, and so you can get an idea of how Imam Muhammad kind of formulates his arguments. So this is it is the earliest book alongside the other books of Imam Muhammad, and you can include with it Abu Yusuf, that'll be slightly earlier than, fair enough, but from the earliest books of Dala'il of the Hanafi madhab, which is different to the Kitab al-Asl, which does have Dala'il, but it's much more tafri', trying to be consistent and see what the fiqh is. Dalil I mentioned, but it's not Dalil centric, whereas this is Mas'ala minimum, right? The Mas'ala is just the basic Mas'ala, and then it's about Dala'il. So that's why we're going to use this as Dala'il rather than the Kitab al-Asl, which is more fiqh orientated, although Dala'il and the rationale, etc., is mentioned there as well. So the first section, اختلاف أهل كوفة وأهل المدينة في الصلوات والمواقيت. The differences between the Ahl Kufa and Ahl Medina when it comes to prayers and times. He says, Imam Muhammad, قال أبو حنيفة رضي الله عنه ينبغي أن يسفر بالفجر لما قد جاء في ذلك من الآثار ولأن صلاة الفجر يكون الناس فيها في حال ثقل من النوم فينبغي أن يسفر بها لأن يشهدها من كان نائما ومن كان غير نائم. Right? It's quite interesting. So look, he goes, Imam Abu Hanifa, his position is that when it comes to Fajr Salah should be prayed when it's brighter. Why? He gives 2 reasons. One is because of Athar, One, he gives because of athar. So there's narration saying to pray Fajr later. And number two is because of the fact, it's a rational reason. He goes, look, Fajr is at night and people are sleeping, right? And so the earlier you do Fajr, the more difficult it is for people to come and pray. So if you pray Fajr very early, people are not going to turn up because they will be sleeping. If you delay it, right, then it's easier. It actually makes a lot of sense, for example, in, let's say, in the UK timing right now, in the winter, it's going to be late, it's going to be earlier now, but winter, Fajr sometimes it stops at, we're talking about very late, 7:45 up to 8. So if you were to do your Fajr Salah in Jama'ah, let's say at 7:15, 7:30, a person can have a good night's sleep and wake up and come. If you do at the early time, 5:30, 6, whatever time it will be, then it will be much more difficult for a person to come to pray because it will still be heavy, but he's saying, right? It will be thiqal, and so it will be difficult. So considering those two factors, both the athar and the rational reason, it's preferable, Imam Hanifa says, to delay the prayer of Fajr. وقال أهل المدينة ومالك. The Ahlul Medina and Malik, just to confirm that Malik is of this position as well, because not all Ahlul Medina are the same or are with Malik all the time. He says, ينبغي أن يغلس بها لما جاء في ذلك الأخبار. That they should do it تغليس. يغلس, you should do تغليس, which is pray when it's dark. Because there have been reports that have come. So Imam Muhammad recognized that both have reports. وقال محمد بن حسن. So now Imam Muhammad said, this is the Nasir quoting him, he says, قد جاء في ذلك آثار مختلفة من التغليس والإسفار بالفجر. That different reports have come regarding praying Fajr at night when it's dark earlier, or praying it later when it's brighter. والأسفار بالفجر أحب إلينا, or إسفار, he has with the أسفار, I would say, you can read probably those both. إسفار بالفجر أحب إلينا, that praying Fajr when it's brighter is more beloved to us. لأن القوم كانوا يغلسون فيطيلون قراءة فينصرفون كما ينصرف أصحاب الأسفار ويدرك النائم وغيره للصلاة. So he's basically, Imam Muhammad has found a way to do tatbiq. He goes, the best to do is, to asfar is better, because some people, they pray Fajr earlier and they lengthen the qira'ah. فَيَنْصَرِفُونَ كَمَا يَنْصَرِفُ أَسْفَارُ الْأَسْفَارِ يُدْرِكُ النَّائِمَ وَغَيْرُهُ الصَّلَاةِ. So therefore, when they turn away, just like the people of pray later turn away, so the one who's sleeping and others can attain salah. وقد بلغنا عن أبي بكر الصديق رضي الله عنه أنه قرأ سورة البقرة في صلاة الصبح فإنما كان يغلسون لذلك فأما من خفف وصلى بسورة المفصل ونحوها فإنه ينبغي له أن يسفر. So he goes, look, if you're an imam that wants to do a long Fajr, a long Fajr would only make sense if you are pray Fajr early. In that sense, there's no problem because you start your Fajr early. Those who wake up later can partake when it gets later, because you're doing this very long 45 minutes hour Fajr. If you're saying reading Surah Baqarah, you can imagine how long that Fajr will be. And those who want to pray Fajr shorter, then pray later. Right? In both cases, you've basically sorted out both positions. This is all mustahab anyways, not like one salah becomes invalid, the other one invalid. So he goes, it's reached us from Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu to that effect. Now here he says, balagana. The Muhashi mentions the isnad for this, but here he says, balagana, it's reached us, right, from Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. وقد بلغنا, it's reached us, he says, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أسفروا بالفجر فإنه أعظم للأجر. That pray Fajr when it's bright, indeed there is more reward. حديث مستفيض معروف. This is a widespread known hadith. This is a widespread known hadith of Asfur al-Fajr. So Imam Muhammad is saying this is well known. So the hadith is established. أخبرنا محمد بن أبان ابن صالح القرشي عن هرير ابن عبد الرحمن قال سمعت جدي رافع بن خديج قال نشر بلال يؤذن للفجر. Right, so here he explains, he goes nashara bin noon was sheen was zai. So here you got nashara, and then in the book it nashaza. نشز هو القيام والارتفاع والتباع والنفور منه امرأة ناشزة والنشوز. So here in the original top text it says nashara, in the footnote it says it should be with nashaza. I think it's a scribe, it's just a typo here. So نشز بلال يؤذن الفجر فقال له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أسفر أي بلال. قال فجلس ثم نشز الثانية ليؤذن فقال أسفر أي بلال. فجلس ثم نشز ثالثة فقال فتركه فأذن. So he was told he was going to adhan, he was told to delay, let it get brighter, at the end he comes and he does it. So this affirms the point that so Imam Muhammad cites this with the Sanad. He further says, so he mentioned a claim that the narration of Asr al-Fajr is known, widespread. So he's mentioning multiple narrations to that effect. So this is one. He brings another Sanad going back to Rafi Khadij. He says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أسفروا بالفجر فإن أعظم الأجر. There's أخبرنا سلام بن سليم قال حدثني هرير بن عبد الرحمن بن رافع بن خديج قال سمعت جدي رافع بن خديج أنصاري يقول سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول يا بلال نور بالفجر ما يرى القوم مواقع نبلهم. Alright, that he says brighten the Fajr, meaning let it become lighter so people can actually see around. That's the idea. So it's bright enough for people to see مواقع نبلهم. قال أخبرنا هشام بن سعد المدني عن زيد بن أسلم قال أخبرني محمود اللبيد الأنصاري عن رجال من قومي من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قالوا قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أصبحوا بالصبح فكلما أصبحتم فهو أعظم الأجر. Right, same meaning. So he's given another narration to that same thing, أسفر بالفجر. And then قال محمد حسن قال أبو حنيفة رضي الله عنه. Now that's the end of that mas'ala. That's the end of that mas'ala. So what Imam Muhammad has done here, he's mentioned two arguments. He's basically reiterated Imam Abu Hanifa's argument. He says, look, we have narrations that say delay Fajr. And he's accepted that there are narrations that Imam Malik has and Ahlul Madinah that say pray Fajr earlier. Our narration is established. Your narration doesn't say it's not established, but it's assumed to be established. Well, the purpose is, okay, we can easily explain the earlier narrations because if you're going to pray long Fajr, then the Isfar takes place within the Salah anyway. And why would the Messenger of Allah say delay Fajr? The delaying of Fajr will only make sense so more people can participate. So rationally speaking, the narration of Isfar is more, there's more reason to accept it than the narration of Taghris. Right? That's the argument that Imam Muhammad mentions, and he mentions these multiple reports to that effect. Now these reports, some of them individually are not authentic, right? But as a whole, and the rationale behind it, but as a whole, he goes, look, it's well known this happened. And Imam Muhammad is from the early Imams, quoting from Abu Hanifa. This is, Imam Hanifa is a very young tabi'i. He's saying this is well known narration from Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and so therefore we accept it alongside this rationale. Put two and two together, you get the masla that we are arguing for, right? So it's actually quite a lot of thinking behind that, the way he establishes the dalil for the Hanafi madhab. Okay, so now let's move on to just another section. So we're going to try doing this inshallah with these works. We're going to go through some of the just the basic introduction to the book and look at a few sections so you can get a feel of it, and of course you can spend time going through other parts of the book and you can kind of start to understand the manhaj of Imam Muhammad in providing dalail for the Hanafi madhab. And of course Imam Muhammad himself is a mujtahid, and there are places where he disagrees with Imam Hanifa. So just straight after that section you have the discussion of shafaq. What is the shafaq for the beginning of Isha? Is it shafaq al-ahmar or shafaq al-abyad? Imam Abu Hanifa says shafaq al-abyad. Imam Muhammad says shafaq al-ahmar. He takes the position of what the Ahlul Madinah say, Malik, and so in that case he actually gives arguments for them as well. But at the same time he does present Imam Abu Hanifa's case as well, so just to show that it's not baseless, but he doesn't necessarily agree with it. So just moving on to the next chapter, Babul Mash al-Khuffayn. Babul Mash al-Khuffayn. قال أبو حنيفة لا بأس بالمسح على الخفين للمقيم يوما وليلة من الحديث حديث إلى تلك الساعة من الغد، وللمسافر 3 أيام ولياليها لا يمسح أكثر من ذلك. Abu Hanifa says there is no problem on wiping over the khuffain for the resident for 1 day and night from the moment to the next same time of the following day, right, as is well known in the Hanafi madhab. And for the musafir, he has 3 days and 3 nights, he can't do mas more than that. So if you were musafir, you have 3 days and 3 nights, you can't do mas more than that. وقال أهل المدينة المدينة say المسح على خفين المسافر أبدا ليس في ذلك عندنا وقت يمسح على خفيه ما دام مسافر ما لم يحدث. So they say that the musafir has, when he's a musafir, the mask can be done for as long as they want. There's no fixed time for it. The mask can be done for as long as they want. There's no fixed time for it until he doesn't, meaning, so he goes, ما دام مسافر ولم يحدث. وأما المقيم فإن أهل المدينة اختلفوا في ذلك فقال بعضهم لا يمسح مقيم على خفين منهم مالك بن أنس ومن أخذ بقوله. Because as for the muqim, the scholars of Medina have differed in that. From amongst them, there are those that say the muqim should not wipe over the khuf. The muqim is not allowed to wipe over the khuf. Amongst them is Malik ibn Anas, who holds this position. وَمَنْ أَخَذَ بِقَوْلِ, and those who take his position. وقال غير من أهل المدينة المسافر المقيم في ذلك سواء يمسحان الخفين أبدا. Right, so this position is attributed to Imam Malik. So of course, we can actually go and check, is this the Maliki position of Mas'al al-Khuffayn? What we'll do, of course we can't do tasks here, right? It's actually quite easy to check out now. So all you have to do now, right? Because this is where you get this now. Is this Malik's position or not? Go to, either you want to go to Mudawwana from the earliest text, or an easy way, go to Mukhtasar Khalil, find the section Mas'al al-Khuffayn, you go see what Imam Malik's position is on this. Does it coincide with what Imam Muhammad is saying or not? You can find out inshallah. But for our purpose, let's stick to what he's saying here. قال غيره من أهل المدينة, the musafir and muqim are the same. They can do mas upon it as long as they want, in one instance. وممن قال هذا وممن قال هذا القول عبد العزيز بن أبي حازم سلم ومن أخذ بقول من أهل المدينة. وكان مالك بن أنس يقول بهذا القول زمانا من عمره ثم رجع فقال لا يمسح المقيم على الخفين. He goes, Imam Malik used to take a position for a time that the muqim and musafir are the same, but then he retracted and he said the muqim cannot do mas upon khuffain. فأي القولين السنة في هذا? Which of these positions is sunnah in this? أقول, I'll say مالك أقول مالك الأول أقول الآخر. Is it his first position or second position? فقد زعموا أنهم يقولون بالسنة وما كان عليه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وأصحابه. They claim that their position that they're holding is the sunnah, and it is that which the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم was on and his companions were on. وقال محمد بن حسن, Imam Muhammad says, الآثار في المسح المقيم يوم وليلة ومسافر ثلاثة أيام لياليها كثيرة معروفة. That the narrations for the mas for the muqim for 1 day and 1 night and for the musafir 3 and 3 nights are known and widespread. وما كنت أظن أن أحدا ممن نظر في الفقه يشكل عليه الآثار في هذا. He goes, I don't think anyone that knows fiqh that this mas'ala will be difficult for them. Then he narrates, أخبرنا أبو حنيفة قال حدثنا حماد. One second. أخبرنا أبو حنيفة قال حدث حماد أن إبراهيم بن حنظلة ابن النبات الجعفي أن عمر بن الخطاب قال المسح خفين المقيم يوم وليلة والمسافر 3 أيام لياليهن إذا لبس وأنت طاهر. أخبرنا محمد بن أبان بن صالح القرشي أن حماد أن إبراهيم النخعي أن أبي عبد الله الجدلي أن خزيمة بن ثابت الأنصاري عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال المسح خفين المسافر 3 ليال وأيامهن وللمقيم يوم وليلة وإذا لبس وهو طاهر. Then he carries on mentioning narration from, he says, from Shurayh ibn Hani, he goes, Ayataytu Aisha anha, and he asks the question. Then he mentioned another report, which goes back to al-Khattab, same meaning, goes, في المسألة خفين أن للمسافر 3 أيام ويليهم وللمقيم يوم وليلة. Then goes, a following report from Abdullah Mas'ud to that same effect. And then we have a narration going back to the Shurayh ibn Hani from Aisha anha again, similar reports come before. And he mentions numerous reports to the same effect. Then he says at the end, وأخبرنا مالك أيضا عن سعيد بن عبد الرحمن بن رقيش أنه قال رأيت أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه أتى قباء فبال ثم أتى بماء فتوضأ فغسل وجهه ويديه إلى المرفقين ومسح برأسه ثم مسح الخفين ثم صلى. فهذا أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه أكان مسافرا بقباء؟ فهذه آثارهم التي رووها وحملوها ثم نقضوها برأيهم. Look at what Imam Muhammad is saying. For us right now, the purpose of the accuracy of these, how do they respond is not relevant to us. We're just trying to look at his manhaj. So he goes, look,
And it shows you the carefulness that Imam Muhammad has when it comes to athar. He goes, look, Imam Malik, I narrate from Malik that he narrates from a son of Anas ibn Malik, where he urinated near Masjid Quba. Masjid Quba is, you're not a musafir when you go to Masjid Quba. It's a few kilometers away from Masjid Nabawi. So he was not a musafir. So he urinated and he did wudu and he did must upon his, when he does must upon his khuffain. So he goes, this is Anas ibn Malik. Was he a musafir in Quba? And these are narrations that they've narrated, and then they have refuted them with their ra'i. He's accusing them of refuting it with their ra'i. وقال أبو حنيفة رضي الله عنه في المسح الخفين يمسح. So then the next masla starts. So there, here you see the central role that athar play within the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa and the Hanafis, such that Imam Muhammad is claiming that the Malikis here have turned away from the athar. Not just that, they turn away from athar that they themselves have narrated. They turn away from athar that they themselves have narrated. And that's quite a significant claim, as you can see the method of Imam Muhammad, where athar play a central role, and rather ra'i is condemned in opposition to athar. Then he goes on to talk about then he talks about where to do mas from. So let's look at other sections. You got section on tayammum. قال أبو حنيفة رضي الله عنه في رجل لم يجد الماء فتيمم لصلاة حضرت ثم حضرت صلاة الأخرى أن يصلي بتيممه ذلك ما لم يحدث أو يجد الماء. So this is Imam Abu Hanifa's position, that when it comes to tayammum and you do your tayammum and you pray your salah, then you still haven't broken your wudu, and the next salah comes, you carry on praying, you don't have to do tayammum again. أهل المدينة say يتيمم لكل صلاة, you do tayammum for every salah. وقال محمد بن حسن لأي شيء قلت أن يتيمم لكل صلاة. I asked them, why does he have to tayammum for every salah? Give your reason. قالوا, they say, لأن عليه أن يبتغي الماء لكل صلاة, because he needs to look for water for every salah. فلما ابتغى الماء فلم يجده فإنه يتيمم. So the second he looks, so when he goes back and looks again for water, he doesn't find it, does tayammum again. قيل له, we said to them, وكيف وجب التيمم في ابتغاء الماء ولم يوجد الماء. Why would tayammum become necessary when you're seeking water and you can't find water? How does that affect his tayammum? إنما يبتغي الماء ليوجد فينتقد التيمم إذا وجد الماء وليس ينقض ابتغاء الماء إذا لم يوجد، لأن الله تبارك وتعالى قال فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا، فرخص لمن لم يجد الماء يتيمم ولم يذكر ابتغاء الماء، فعلى من وجد الماء الوضوء وعلى من لم يجد الماء التيمم، ثم هو على تيممه حتى يجد الماء أو يحدث فليس الابتغاء بشيء. So then he responds, he goes, look, seeking water just means that you can't find what you have tayammum. So he goes, إنما يبتغي الماء, to be found. That doesn't break the tayammum and the tayammum breaks if he finds the water. If he doesn't find the water, the tayammum doesn't break. And the Quran simply says, if you can't find water, then do tayammum. Right? If you can't, and he hasn't found it, initially, he goes, looks again, it's not saying his tayammum breaks. Right? He's given a dispensation that the one who doesn't find water, he does tayammum. He doesn't mention that seeking water, لم يذكر ابتغاء ماء فعلى من وجد الماء الوضوء وعلى من لم يجد التيمم. أرأيتم لو كان في موضع لا يتمع في الماء وأنه ابتغاه ينقض الابتغاء تيممه. This is now the ra'i of the Hanafis. He goes, look, if you're in a place then where there's no hope of water, so there's no point even looking, right? Does that mean he has to tayammum for every salah? Because now there's no ibtigha' al-ma', right? أفلا يرون أن الابتغاء لا يجب به التيمم ولا ينقض به التيمم ماضٍ إنما ينتقد التيمم بحدث يحدثه الرجل أو يجد الماء. Do you not see that the reality then is, when you look at this scenario, you have to say then that in that scenario there's no need to tayammum again, because there's no ibtigha' al-ma' necessary. There's no chance you're going to find water, right? So therefore you will do, you keep your tayammum. If that's the case, then you realize that it's not ibtigha' al-ma' which breaks the tayammum, it is or rather it's not ibtigha' al-ma' that breaks the tayammum, rather it is hadath that breaks it. So we stick to that rule. So with that scenario, with that these few texts, we've kind of looked at this first text, Al-Hujjah ala Ahl Medina. I went through just a few masail so that we can kind of gain a bit of insight into the thought process of Imam Muhammad. And we see this, this great faqih in action, in where there is a, you see the gathering between athar of Sahaba. So you have athar from Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, athar of Sahaba, rational arguments, ilzami arguments. So at the end, doing ilzam, saying, okay, if you say this, then what do you say when this happens? That's called ilzami arguments. We saw that right at the end. We saw the weight that are given to athar. The weight that are given to athar, that when there's a narration that comes, ra'yi is not accepted. Rather, Imam Muhammad, he openly condemns the Maliki position, Imam Malik's position, because of his opposition to athar. Remember, these are athar that he narrated was a practice of Anas ibn Malik. It wasn't even prophetic. Right? Anas ibn Malik report was not even prophetic. And he goes, you narrated, you go against what you're right. That is prophetic. So it kind of refutes the stereotype that people present of the Hanafi method, that is very much Ra'yi based. Rather, Ra'yi came into play, for example, the Tayammum Masla, because of the lack of athar. So therefore, Imam Muhammad chose to go down the Ra'yi route and the Ilzami route. So you see a clear hierarchy in the structure of how we approach Masail, that we first look for athar, then we look at Ra'yi, and we also do tatbiq. So when there are multiple reports, like in the case of Isfar or Taghlis for Fajr, there was a way that we can explain it in a way that agrees to say, okay, you want Taghlis, but if you're going to pray long Fajr, do Taghlis. That way, Isfar and Taghlis are both done. The maqsid for the people that come late, they can pray. And then for those who are praying shorter Fajr, which will be usually the case, a shorter Fajr, then you do Isfar. That way you can act upon both narrations. Alright, and then there's a rational underlining to the argument, which is what? That Fajr, because people are tired, you delay the Fajr so they can have sleep. Right? Again, this is for mustahabbat we're talking about, right? And you can see this manhaj go throughout the Kitab al-Hujjah al-Madinah, a very important book which is very rarely read by Hanafis, but it's one of the early books of Dala'il of the Hanafi madhab, so you can start to see the original way in how these fuqaha approach these masail. So we stop here inshallah, and we're going to go through some other books inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.